Welcome to the Builders Podcast, episode 162, Andrei Mincov, the Trademark Factory's origin story, and a deep dive into trademarks. Before we jump into this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, hit that notification bell if you're on YouTube, and after a listen, please give us a thumbs up, like, and share, if we've earned it. With your help, we can reach more people and deliver these valuable from the trenches lessons to those that need it. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another The Builders. Today, we are joined by Andrei Mincov. Welcome to the show, Andrei.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So, Andrei is a trademarks expert. Do you have an official title or anything? What do we call you? What do you do?
I am the founder and CEO of Trademark Factory. So I started doing everything for the business, both the client work and the business development work. And now I try to do as little client work as possible and mostly focus on running this as a business and growing this as a business.
Gotcha.
So but I still remember a thing or two about trademarks.
You haven't forgotten that. I actually talked to somebody this past year who she had separated herself so much from part of the business that she actually, like the craft, she was behind on. She couldn't answer some questions related to it. So it happens. It's what we decide. But yeah, I've been recently. I started just asking the guest what they do, because sometimes they do such an amazing job, making it much more detailed and and specific to what you're doing than my robotic. This is the founder of. Anyway, so great. So the first thing we do when we have somebody on this podcast, first episode, because you'll be here, we'll have you at least another 10 times. Over the next 10 years, maybe.
Sounds exciting.
So the first time we have you on, though.
Let me get my calendar.
Let's line it up now. But no, it's the first time we have you on. We talk about your story, your origin story. How you were created, how you became this awesome person today, building this awesome business that's helping people around the world, and teaching people about trademarks and helping people get trademarks and all that good stuff. So tell us a little bit about that journey. What inspired you? How did you get into entrepreneurship and business in general?
So there's obviously a lot to unpack here, but
yeah.
There's a very particular moment that started it all. And that moment was when I got home one day from my institute when I was still living in Russia and attending a law school there. So my dad was a famous Russian composer. He wrote music for over 160 movies there.
Wow.
And so one day I come home from school, and he says that he caught a radio station that took one of his songs, actually the song that I used to sing with him on stage when I was like 5, 6, 7 years old. They took that song and they turned that into an ad for Samsung without his permission.
Oh, wow.
And my mom used to always listen to the radio. Like she'd listen to like politics, like basically all day long, 24/7.
Yeah. And
there's always been that radio that you could record something on tape, right? So she heard that and she recorded that. And so he called the radio station and said, "Hey guys, you can't just take my music and use it for an ad without asking me, without paying me anything." And they told him to sit down, shut up, and be grateful that they were making him even more famous. And like, if you knew my dad, you'd know right away that was the wrong thing to say to him. Yeah. Like, out of everything you could have thought about, that was probably the worst thing you could have said. And so he said, "Okay, great. I'll see you in court." He slams down the phone, and this is when I come home. And I see he's fuming. He's like
Sure.
so pissed.
Yeah.
And I'm asking, well, what's going on? He said, well, this is happening. He says, by the way, so you're a law student, right? You're second year, third year, can't remember what year it was. Yeah, I think third year. So can you help me sue these assholes? And I'm like, I've never done this before. I really didn't study intellectual property. But he said, well, Russia has just transitioned from the Soviet copyright laws into free market copyright laws back in the day. It was 1996.
Okay.
And said, neither have anybody. Like there's no precedence. Like everyone's going to be trying to figure this out as they go. Like, can you help? And I've always admired my dad. Like, I mean, I still do. And I've always wanted to get his approval, like sort of still do, even though he's unfortunately passed many years ago.
Oh.
And so when he said, well, can you help? I said, okay, sure. Well, I'll figure it out. So I bought some books. I tried to figure it out. I took them to court. And I ripped them apart in the first hearing. They asked for an adjournment. Next time, they had 4 lawyers on the other side against me. And I imagine me, I'm right now, I look a lot more presentable and more, how do you say, formal than I used to look back then, because back then I used to have hair long like this, like in a big ponytail. I never owned a suit until 9 years into practice. Right, I still have no idea how to tie a tie. My wife pre-ties my ties for me. So I go there anyway, and so they did something that is usually qualifies for corruption. So we lost the case. And so I remember sitting in my room reading the judgment that basically said they infringed on my father's copyright, but because they infringed on my father's copyright, they didn't, so they don't have to pay anything.
Wait, what?
And I'm like, what does that even mean?
What does that mean?
Right? And so my dad came into my room, and I was like reading this, and I was so upset because I failed him. I let him down, right? I said I'll do it, and I didn't. And so he came into my room and said, what are you going to do? I'm like, I have no idea. I did all the right things. I said all the right words, and here I am reading this nonsense. Mm-hmm. And he said, if you're not going to appeal this, you should quit your law school today and find yourself a different profession. And I'm like, okay. So we appealed this. We lost the appeal, and then I appealed it to the second highest court in the country, and then we won.
Wow!
Right? So
awesome.
The whole thing took like 2 years, and we won.
And you learned a lot, I would imagine.
What?
And you learned a lot, I would imagine.
I learned a ton. And by that time, I really became one of the top copyright lawyers because the competition was pretty small, and because I had all this practical ability to learn on the go with what I call my first and favorite client, right? And so,
right.
and so, by the time I left Russia, which was can't remember, was 2007. Yeah, there had not been a single federal TV station that I had not sued for infringing on my father's music.
Oh, they loved you. They knew your name.
They did, but the good thing, I only had to do it once because they all wanted one shot. They got their shot. They lost. And next time, all I had to do is say, okay, we got you again. And we just come up with, with the terms that everyone was happy with. Yeah. But really that's what turned this into a career, because when I was going to law school in Russia, I totally did not see myself as a lawyer. I didn't want to be a lawyer. It was boring. All I cared about back in the day were girls, booze, and music, right? And
With the
lawyering was very low on that list of
Right.
things I was interested in. But that case, when I was fighting for my dad's music, actually turned those thick books into something that actually meant something to me. Because I saw that there is a whole category of people who can't get protected any other way other than in court. Because you can't put a lock on intellectual property, you can't put an alarm on it, right? And I strongly believe that people who create something that others want to use deserve to not have it stolen from them. And so that became a career. And so I done like a lot of stuff for my dad, and then I joined the biggest international law firm in the world that had a big department on IP, Baker McKenzie. They had an office in Russia, and so I worked with them for 4 years. And then in 2007, I had enough of Russia, and I said to myself, you know what, it's time to try something else. So after some research, I ended up in Canada, had to go back to law school there again for the full 3 years. And
you had to go back to get your license or whatever to.
Yeah, they didn't take any of my credentials. Like they didn't take my PhD, they didn't take care of my 9 years of practice in Russia, like none of that. So go back to school, boy. Okay. So I go back to school, and instead of being pissed about having to go back to school, I'm like, okay, great. It's a great opportunity for me to be open to other areas of law and see if I am doing intellectual property just because it so happened with my dad, or because there's something to it that's special to me. And there was only one other subject that I actually enjoyed for whatever reason, which was insurance law. I've never done any work in insurance law since, but this was the only one that I'm like, this is interesting. But the second they started talking about intellectual property, and there was a course in trademarks, there was a course in patents, there was a course on copyright. Like I woke up, right? I had this reminder why I'm even doing this. And so I said to myself, great, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to find myself a good spot in a Canadian law firm. I'm going to show them how I've worked with Baker McKenzie. I'm going to show them how I've done all this work for Apple, Microsoft, DreamWorks, J.K. Rowling, all the big names you can think of. I've probably done some work for them. Our Baker McKenzie even have an office in Canada as well. So I'm like, that should be
perfect, yeah,
a logical step. And I finished top of my class in half the courses and top 10 in the remaining ones. And I got a grand total of 0 job offers when I was done with my schooling in Canada. And I look at that and I'm like, it didn't make any sense to me, right? If you remember Rambo Part 1,
it's been a while back yet.
Yeah, I know. There's this scene at the end when he's in that ammo store, and he's having a conversation with a colonel, and he says, back in Vietnam, they trusted me with $1 million equipment, and here I can't find a job parking cars. That's exactly how I felt like, because like I used to do massive deals. I used to help massive companies, and here I couldn't find anyone who would entrust me with reviewing a $500 agreement. Wow. And so, and that's when I discovered Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad.
If I could count how many times that book has come up on this podcast, a lot of people have read that book.
And it's probably, there's a lot in that story that is very typical, I guess. So that was my path. And when I read it, there was a few things in it. First of all, Rob's story about his Velcro wallets where he didn't protect the IP, and I'm like, okay, right? And then he took that lesson really to heart and made a killing with protecting the IP over his cash flow game and the cash flow quadrant and his books and all of that. But the other thing I said to myself is, if I can't, because in Canada, after you're done with your law school, you don't get a law license until you've slaved for 9 months for some law firm doing some practical work for next to nothing, right? I was getting paid, so in US dollars, it was like $25,000 a year. And like I have my family, everything, right? That we moved to Canada from Russia. So back in the day.
So you did find something. You found a job, but you had to work for that little pay.
So for that I did eventually find one. I did find one guy, and this was just for the articles, right?
Okay.
And after that, there was no offers to actually work as a lawyer.
Gotcha.
But like I said, I had to take a little step back. And so making that 25 grand a year, right? I was spending close to 100 because we just
those numbers don't work.
Right? And I'm like, after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, I'm like, if I start my own law firm and I make less than 25 grand a year as the owner of a law firm, that'll be a pretty good sign that I'm not a great lawyer and probably even worse of a business owner. And so that was really my extent of preparation for I'm going to do this. And so I did. I started the company with a very creative name back in the day. It's called Mincov Law Corporation.
Mincov Law.
Like super creative, I know.
Yeah.
And so for the first couple of months, I'm like, I know so much. I'm supposed to be getting clients. And very quickly I realized that my experience as a lawyer had very little to do with my ability to make good money as the owner of the firm.
Gotcha.
And, the usual. And that's when I discovered eMyth, which, by the way, we've done some trademarks for Michael Gerber.
Have you really?
Nice. We did, yeah. We got his big endorsement on the website somewhere. But so eMyth, and the other one that was big for me was John Warrilow's Build to Sell. Build to Sell. And I very quickly realized, hey, if I wanted to be successful and compete with all those other Canadian law firms that have infinitely more money to, hire the best lawyers, to promote their services. Like they had the reputation. And here's this Russian guy who's, trying to run around and trying to get some business. Like I realized that in order for this to happen, in order for me to not go broke and die of hunger under the bridge, I had to come up with an offer that would speak to the target audience. And that's how the idea of Trademark Factory was born. Basically, I got so scared into that I won't be making any money that I came up with an offer that has been feeding me ever since, which is trademark registration services with a guaranteed result for a guaranteed budget, right? Because I saw how it's done, both at Baker McKenzie. I saw that how it's done in Canada. I saw it's done in the U.S. And I know that trademarking, the market for trademarking services at that time was really split between law firms that will charge you by the hour every time they need to sneeze on your file, and what I call them cheap fake services that promise to file your trademark for $69, and they'll do that for $69. But once they filed your trademark for $69, then you're on your own. When the trademarks office sends you a rejection 6 months later, you look at that. Oh,
what do I do with this?
Now what?
Yeah,
and they're
right.
like, I don't know. We told you we'll file your trademark. We'll file your trademark. Now you have to figure out. Now you probably have to find an attorney who's going to fix that for you. And this business model, like I think it's despicable, because really entrepreneurs who, and this is very similar to my situation with my dad when I was so outraged with someone just being taken advantage of like this. I think it's the exact same thing with entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs who decide that, hey, my brand is worth something, I want to protect it, I want to own it, and they go and they trust someone to do it for them, only to find out that they got screwed a year later, and they have to go back to the drawing board because someone else already trademarked. Like this is bad. I don't think it's right. So
Right.
I decided that I would come up with something that will make them, that will make a better deal for them. And actually, this guy back, I didn't know we're going to be talking about this, but it just reminded me of how it went. So my very first trademark association meeting was in Dallas in 2013 or something like this. I think I'm not mistaken on the date, on the year. So I went there. It's a big. Can you imagine like a room filled with 10,000 trademark attorneys from around the world? That's what it is. Like a
Wow.
big convention hall.
Surprising
Everyone
that
is
there's
a
that
trademark
many.
attorney.
Yeah.
And so I went there, and with the same fear, like, how do I stand out from the other 9,999 attorneys?
Right.
Why would people remember me? Why would they send me some business? And so this is when I came up with the name Trademark Factory. We put a website to go live literally 48 hours before I had to fly to Dallas, right?
Really? Like last minute?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And so we put up the website, and I would go meet with a bunch of people on those speed networking exercises, right? And everyone I told to that, hey, we're going to be doing guaranteed result, guaranteed budget. If your trademark doesn't go through, you get all your money back. And if there's any complications in the middle, the client pays nothing. Like, and they're like, this can't be done. Like, this is
you're going to lose money.
Like, this is crazy. And
Yeah.
the first couple, I got a little worried, but when I got like 100% of them, and it was like probably about 300-400 people that I spoke to, I'm like, this is great. This is perfect, because this just validates my assumption that I'm going to have enough of a runway to build this, with everyone thinking that I'm nuts.
You won't have any competition in the beginning. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, and that's all we did. And I mean, this is my very first business, Trademark Factory, right? I barely know what the hell I'm doing. Over the years, I've made so many stupid mistakes with so many things, with how you build a team, with how you do marketing, with how you do sales, with how you do your finance, like so much stuff. We've easily, wasted, well, I don't know if tens of millions, probably not, but millions for sure, of dollars. The one thing that kept us going is that idea, that offer. That's the one thing that kept us afloat. And because this is the best thing in the market for those who see that who are serious about protecting their brand. Really what we say is that it's an obvious choice for brand owners who are serious about protecting their brands. Because, if you want to do a $69 gamble, sure, you're not going to be our client. But if you know that the brand is worth something to you, and you want to get it done without thinking, about paying more, again, I don't want to make it too promotional. because that's not where I was going with
No,
it. But if you ask the story, that's what the story is.
that's where it lands, right? It's what you're doing today and what you're bringing to the world. I think it's, there's a lot obviously to unpack, but just talking about what you're talking about there, it's interesting when you're like, well, I mean, all entrepreneurs, businesses, they fail, right? they probably whole businesses fail, with entrepreneurs before they find one that's actually a success and they figured it out, me included. But the fact that your first business is doing so awesome, but it's that core offer. You had identified something that's perfect for that market that fills a need, like in between there that people weren't, that surprisingly no one had thought of. And I love the fact that it's all built in. You're supporting, you care about the results. You're not just not collecting money. You like the money too, probably, but you care about actually the people that your customers, your clients, whatever you call them. And that's amazing.
So to speak to that, if I may.
Yeah.
So I think what works really well is that we put ourselves in the same shoes of the client, right? Because we have the exact same interest. What we want is so that their trademark application goes through as quickly and as easily as possible. Because with a flat fee, if their trademark goes through as quickly and as easily as possible, we get a pretty good margin.
Right. Yeah.
We make good money, right? And they're happy because they got their trademark. If their trademark becomes complicated, and worse yet, if it doesn't go through at the end, then we lose money, right? So our interests are fully aligned, right? Even if you look at it from the pure, money-making perspective.
Yeah.
And like with law firms, they only make money if the process gets complicated, because that's how they turn their $500 filing into a $7,000, client. And they have no financial incentive not to file an imperfect trademark application in the beginning.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
All right.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, that plus the fact that, I actually do give a shit, right?
Yeah.
That's important to me. We actually have, I think one of the pages on the website is like, the power of 4 gives, right? We say we give you the free comprehensive search, we give you the flat fee, we give you the money back guarantee, and last one, we give a damn, right? Because we actually do, and people who've used us, they all notice this.
Yeah, and that's great, and people, and that's, even though you're providing this great service, people are going to pick up, but they can tell you care. Obviously, the way you talk to them or your teams talk to them or lawyers. The other thing here in my business brain too, and having a little bit of an insurance background, because I was actually an insurance agent for like a year, a decade.
Interesting.
Is the spreading of risk. I feel like that's in there too, because you probably have a lot. I don't know what the percentages are, but you're going to have some that do just go through and it's a piece of cake. But then the ones that are risky or have more problems, they're kind of supported by that. So it's kind of the spreading the risk too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, naturally. So the overall statistics for USPTO, which is the U.S. Trademarks Office, and we file most of our trademarks in the U.S., their overall statistics is that 68% of trademarks, of all trademark applications filed, initially get rejected. If you're looking at trademark applications filed by unrepresented applicants, which is like people who file their own trademarks and people who file their trademarks through those $69 filing websites. Basically, if you don't have an attorney representing you, attorney of record, there the percentage is 81% get an office action, an initial rejection. And so once you get one, you have to, as I said, hire someone to help you respond to it so that the trademarks office says, okay, now we got it. Okay, yes. So after all this back and forth, USPTO's overall statistics is that only 51.7% of trademark applications ever go through. Half.
Wow.
With us, it's 99.3.
Really?
because we don't want to file trademarks that we know won't go through. So,
so you do the upfront kind of analysis.
Of course, we're not suicidal. And so the way this works is that, like, let's say you come to me and say, you know what, I came up with this great idea. I'm going to start a software company, and I'm going to call it Micro-Soft Software Solutions. I think it's a good enough name, you say to me, and say, okay, great. Once you become a client, first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a comprehensive search to confirm whether the name can be trademarked. Right. Because if you do a knockout search on most of those websites, they'll tell they use engines that are very similar to like domain names, right? If it's not identical match, they're like, good, let's do it. Give us the 69 bucks.
That is not sufficient. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we do a search. We get back to you and say, Matt, you know what? It sounded like a great idea at the time, maybe, but unfortunately, you won't be able to get this trademarked. And so from there, you have two options. One is you can get everything you paid us back and basically pretend the conversation never happened. So you get a free assessment why the name wouldn't work. Or you can throw any additional options at us until you pick a name that you love and that you want to go forward with, right? And so I'm not interested in filing for a trademark that I know is not going to go through, because you're not going to be happy. We're going to waste our resources, and even though at that point there's no risk of refund because we told you it's not going to go through, so the guarantee is void. But why? Because we want you to own a brand. We want you to build something. The mission on our company says is to help growth-minded entrepreneurs build amazing brands, right? You can't build an amazing brand if that brand is copying something that's already there. You can't build an amazing brand if you can't own it, right? So that's kind of what this is all about. And we focus on getting you the result that you want.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So to circle way back, I think, listening to your whole story, it's one of the things that is always top of mind for me when I'm talking to an entrepreneur, and especially on this show, because I'm just curious, why people are doing what they're doing. Like when we first had our first conversations, we knew this would be all trademarks, obviously. But my question was going to be, why? Why? Because you're so passionate about it. I knew there had to be something deeper. Like there had to be, you can get, if you like have a toilet paper company or something, why are you so passionate about toilet paper? Because I had this experience back when I was a kid, and I was, we ran out of toilet paper or something. But you, with your father and stuff, and how that kind of, how he inspired you, and that whole experience, and how that really affected you, has carried through, and you care, and it's obvious, you care all it's this thread that goes through everything. You care about, helping others. So that's a beautiful thing. I just wanted to say that first. The other thing, so, and I don't know if you have anything more to say to that, but what I'm going to, I want to pivot to, how, so I personally, I have an agency. We're in our 6th year. I haven't thought about trademarks. I haven't thought about, and I spent a lot of time on that logo. But I'm sure there's got to be a lot of businesses or agencies or whatever out there that are in the same boat. This is something we haven't thought about. We're just focused on growing our company. We got building a team, selling, taking care of our clients, and our brand. Yeah, we got a logo on our site. We got a we got a name, but it seems fine. Nothing's ever happened to us, So I'd like to, have you speak to that a little bit, like, how, as a small business, is this something that we should be thinking a lot more about? Is this how does this rank in importance? And what stage? I mean, in the beginning, in the first year, should we be worrying about that? And 5 years, at the 5 year mark when we actually have built something. What are your thoughts around that?
All right, so there's now my turn to say there's a lot to unpack here. But the first thing I want to say is this, and you'll understand this as the insurance guy. When you say that nothing's happened yet, there's a lot of houses out there that haven't burned down yet.
True. Yes.
But if one of them does, what will be the first question that people will ask? Did you have fire insurance?
Right.
Imagine if their answer is no. So it's pretty much the same thing with trademarks. If someone steals your brand, if someone sends you a demand letter saying that's actually their trademark now, and you go to an attorney and like, help me out, what do we do? That'll be their first question. Is this trademarked? Imagine if your answer is no, right? That's kind of the risk focused answer. But there's more to this. There's a reason you come up with a name. There's a reason you come up with a logo. There's a reason you come up with a tagline. And that's because you want people to remember you as that one thing. Otherwise, you'd be like, hey, we're just a business. What's the business name? I don't know. Business. Like we do business here. We sell stuff. We sell services. People somehow find out about us. They buy. That's my business, right? Then of course like we're a store. We sell stuff, right?
No name
but
attached.
For whatever reason, when we start a business, we go to let's think of a name. Right? How will we position ourselves apart from everyone else who does this? There's a lot of passion and energy and everything that goes into that process. And what I say is that without a trademark, not only do you not own your brand, because really owning a brand is about you being able to legally tell others to stop copying you, right? The only way to do that is with a trademark. But without a trademark, you don't really have a brand, because what you have is just a name, an image, or a phrase that you want to be your brand. But if you can't enforce it, it's not a brand, right? So
just quickly, so legally, okay, is there any? Okay, let's like for my brand, I went to a domain registrar. That was one of the things, make sure I could actually get the domain. Probably did some Googling, make sure no one else is using it in this particular configuration. So that's a starting point. There's nothing obvious out there. And then you've had this, in my case, been in business over 5 years. I feel like if somebody would try to, and I'm probably completely wrong, if somebody tried to steal my brand or use my whatever, that some lawyer somewhere could help me convince the judge that this is my business. Look, I got this long history. It's baked into everything I do, even on our invoices. Do I have any pull there, or is there anything to take to court there to try to fight?
That's a great question, and the answer is maybe, if you have the resources that you're willing to invest in finding out in court whether the judge will look at all this stuff and say, yes, Matt, you're right. You did this for 5 years. You have the invoices, you have the domain names. These guys, bad guys, you good guy, right? Usually costs close to $100,000 in a couple of years for you to find out with an uncertain result. Compare that to you just getting one piece of paper that says Matt owns this stuff.
Gotcha.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
So actually, I'd like to speak to this. Historically, long time ago, when there were no factories and everyone was just building their stuff with their hands. The way they protected brands was exactly the way you say, right? They would provide evidence to the judge and say, I've been doing this for generations. My father was doing this. My grandfather was doing this. I'm doing this. My kids are going to be doing this. We're, putting this little symbol on our shoes to tell the world that this is our shoes. And the judge would look into that and say, oh, these are bad people. They're trying to copy your shoes. Not good, right? And it worked because everything worked significantly slower. The copying your products was harder. Expanding it to other geographical regions was harder. And so the amount of copying was significantly less, right? And so they didn't need trademarks because it all could be done this way. Right, and there weren't lawyers who would charge you $100,000 for a simple trademark infringement case. Now, when industrialization came, and there were those factories that started making products, it became significantly easier for people to copy.
Right.
And so people who invested in those factories, invested in those products, invested in those brands, were lobbying the governments around the world, basically saying, we need a more robust way to prove that this is our brand and stop the competition, stop the competitors from copying our names, our logos. And that's how they came up with trademarks. And the idea behind trademarks was that those brand owners or those entrepreneurs or those businesses that care to protect their brands should have an easy way to ask the government to make a record somewhere in their books that they own this brand. That's the whole idea about with trademarks, right? You go to the government and say, hey, I want to own this brand for this product or this service. And if it's not too close to something that had been previously registered, they'll record it, they'll take a little bit of money, and you're going to get that protection for some limited amount of time, right? And the second underlying idea with this was, if you didn't get that registered as a trademark, it was you sending the message to the world that you really don't care much about that brand. Because if you did, you had this very simple mechanism that all you had to do is just go say, this is my brand, I want this, give it to me, right? Yeah. And so...
Hold on a second. Let me put this on my calendar. I need to I need to do this.
No, but really that's what it is, right? Because that's the reason trademarks were invented. Just to give brand owners an easy way to prove this without having to go to court, without having to show them, 3 years worth of invoices and all of that stuff. Here, because when you get your trademark registered, you are creating two legal presumptions. One is that this is a valid trademark, and two, that you're the owner of it, right? You don't have to prove any of this. You know what's the most expensive thing in court?
Trying to prove something?
Trying to prove something, exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is when you have to get all this evidence, all those experts, all those witnesses, all those lawyers arguing about, hey, it's actually this and not that. That's how you spend days trying to prove a simple thing.
Yeah.
And with the trademark registration, all you have to do is just show one piece of paper. You're done. You're done proving. Now the other side has to prove that for whatever reason it's not a valid trademark or that you're not the owner. So you want them to spend the $100,000, not you. So that's kind of the I don't know, probably not short of it, but
it's beautiful. No, it really drove home to me. It makes complete sense, and I don't know why I never had this conversation with anyone before.
Because trademarks aren't sexy. Because trademarks are not sexy. They're not glamorous. It's not like building a website. It's not like putting a social media profile. It's not like having a big webinar, right? Because they're not made to be exciting, unfortunately. Yeah. And that's kind of our marketing challenge, is to explain that, yeah, this is not sexy. But this is something that you got to do if you want to be successful.
It's funny. I was actually, I was on somebody else's podcast this morning. We were talking about website maintenance, because that's what I do, web designer, developer. And one of our core services is maintenance. And that's exactly right. It would either back end coders or maintaining a site. It's not sexy. It's a hard sell, because it's not like front end building landing pages, convert, copy and imagery and all that stuff. It's something it's kind of underneath, and it's easy to ignore. So I can totally relate to that. I have one more thing I want to ask about this. Otherwise we'll be here all day. This has been a great conversation. What is it specifically a trademark is covering? Is it the name? Is it the logo or the mark? Is it, what is it specifically covering?
Whatever
the design,
it is
the colors, what's that?
Yeah. So whatever it is that you file for, if you file for a name, it's going to cover just the name. If you file for a logo, it's going to cover just the logo. That's how all the big brands end up with like thousands of trademarks. Apple owns like 1,300 trademarks in the US alone, right? Same with Amazon. Like they trademark all the names of products, all the names of services. Apple trademarks their icons for like security, like all the apps. They trademark pretty much everything. Why they do it? Well, for two reasons. One, they have the money to do it.
Yeah.
But two, again, they want to build their portfolio, and they want to make it easy for them to stop everyone else from copying them.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, darn it. I was thinking about my main brand. Now I realized, I have these other websites. I got unified plugins. I got the builders. I got.
And that's really where another part of Trademark Factory's offer comes into play, because when you request a call, like when you go on a website or on the landing page, whatever you end up with for Trademark Factory, our call to action is get on a free call with our strategy advisor, and what they do is their job is to listen to your story and really understand the priorities. Because in my almost 30-year career of being an IP lawyer, I've yet to meet a client with an unlimited budget. And I've done work for some multi-billion-dollar clients. Even they have limited budgets, right? Because otherwise, I can give you thousands of things you want to trademark.
Right.
But if
so
you're
prioritizing,
if you're running a relatively small business, or just a small business, or if you're just thinking of starting a business, and we can talk about that as well. But you have to start somewhere. You have to put a list of priorities, and like this will be the one thing. If you have the budget for two, do these two, and so on. Gotcha. And they're trained to dissect the needs of the client. And kind of steer that conversation in the right direction. Because my goal is not to sell you as many trademarks as we possibly can. My goal is to make sure that we're helping you protect what needs to be protected and explain the risks of not protecting everything else. You as the business owner make the decision what's really important and what's less important. Like, for example, with Trademark Factory, like we've never trademarked our logo, because I know that the logo is not what people remember about us. It's not the most important. We've trademarked our taglines. We've trademarked the name in many countries. The logo, not so much, right? Can we do it at some point? Maybe, but we'll see.
It's interesting, because as I say
that,
like I've heard people say, like your brand isn't your logo. Your brand is, how people feel about you and how you're, it's a lot more. So that's interesting. Okay. So
brand is what, like, here's the challenge I always give people is, try thinking of one successful business without thinking of its brand. You can't, because the brand is what we think about when we think of a successful business, right? And probably the first thing that's going to come to mind is the name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I was thinking like Pepsi, Coca-Cola.
Right?
I'm thinking of the name.
Like,
yeah.
Or just do it for Nike. But first you're going to think, okay, Nike, then the swoosh, then just do it. Or maybe Nike, just do it, then swoosh,
Right.
whatever. But we think of those businesses as brands. Like, and that's the stuff that's worth protecting.
Yeah. Like I said, you got me sold. So when you're going to help somebody, let's say somebody is listening to this right now, and they're like me, and I said, well, I should really be thinking about trademarking because I haven't thought about it before, or whatever, or maybe they're just looking for a good solution. What's the first steps that somebody needs to, like I said, you have like a free consult, free call for somebody to jump on and discuss this?
Yeah, so I would say,
go ahead.
Yeah, go to trademarkfactory.com. There's a big button that says, request a free call with a strategy advisor, and start there and mention that you came from the Builders podcast, because if you do, we're going to be able to do a little bit better than the advertised prices on the website.
Nice.
Because again, I don't want to commercialize this too much. Like, we didn't want to put together a specific, page or something like this. Just, if you came from here, let the strategy advisor you're speaking with, hey, Andrei did this interview with Matt on Builders, and they'll be able to do you a little better than you'll see on the website.
I appreciate that. Thanks for extending that offer to us, and me, hopefully too, if I show up. I was the guy. I was hosting. What do I get?
Andrei did this podcast. Oh, okay. What you like about the podcast? Well, I was the one hosting it.
Awesome. You get everything. Awesome. And do you hang out anywhere else? Anybody like on social media? Are you active? Or I know you're.
Yes. Yeah. So I was actually going to say this. The other kind of route that you can take is I've posted close to 1,000 videos on YouTube.
Ah, nice.
I think we may have crossed 1,000 at this point. I don't know. We were like 900 something last month. And so if there is a question about trademarks that you've ever wanted to find the answer to, I've probably recorded a video about this more than once. So, if you're in the learning stage, I would say go to YouTube, search for Trademark Factory, and go through those videos. There's a ton.
It sounds like you've probably covered all the bases. that's quite a few.
We're across social media, but these two, like the website and YouTube, are probably the biggest, the most valuable resources. Like, if I can say one parting thing to the audience.
Sure, why not?
For those of you who are entrepreneurs, you have a brand, you have a company, you have a business, don't let anyone trick you into believing that your brand is worthless, because it's not. There's a reason you came up with it. There's a reason you are spending sleepless nights trying to figure out how to build this business, how to make more people know that you exist under this brand. And while there may be people who are going to tell you, don't worry about this, maybe get yourself a real job. You're going to be getting this until you've succeeded. And once you have succeeded, they'll tell you that, we've supported you from day one.
Yes.
So, and a lot of them are going to tell you, don't worry about protecting your brand. It's like nothing. Who cares? You care. And people who buy from you care. And people who may consider investing in you care. So there's one thing that I'd say is that, your brand is not worthless. And if you truly believe that, make sure you own it.
Oh, that was beautiful. Appreciate you sharing that. Now, I just realized that at the end of every podcast, I should say, do you have any parting words? Because that was awesome. That was awesome. All right. Thanks again, Andrei. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
That's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, please subscribe if you haven't already and give us a thumbs up if we deserve it. If you want to comment on this episode's page, provide me with requests on topics for future episodes, or inquire about being a guest,
please find your way to thebuilders.fm. You can contact me there or add a comment under these show notes. Now a word from our sponsor, my agency, Unified Web Design. We build custom websites, features, we maintain websites, we work with agencies to fulfill their web design and development needs, and more. If you're interested in our services or are looking for an agency to work with as a partner to build awesome sites for your clients, feel free to reach out to me at unifiedwebdesign.com. There's a handy contact me link at the top. Fill out that form and it will open a ticket, and that ticket will find its way to me. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time.